Are you ready?
Let's go.
Now circling in the neutral zone.
Here's the pitch on the way. 36 yards for the win.
This.
Here comes a big chance. The shot.
Is
this the dagger?
The neutral zone.
Home run. Good.
This is as good as it gets.
Now, here's your host, two-time Paralympian, Brock Richardson.
What's going on? It's time for another edition of The Neutral Zone. I am indeed your host, Brock Richardson. Coming up on this edition of The Neutral Zone, in light of International Paralympic Committee President Andrew Parsons being reinstated for a third term, Josh and I will discuss what constitutes a successful presidency at the Paralympic level. Plus, we're going to discuss the World Series bound Toronto Blue Jays. Yes, I said it, and my goodness, did it sound good to say and feel good to say. I'm joined by Josh Watson. Here comes your headlines.
Neutral Zone headlines.
Longtime Team Canada captain and Torino 2006 gold medalist Todd Nicholson will become the first para-hockey player inducted into the Canadian Paralympic Team Hall of Fame. This is an incredible honor and well overdue, so congratulations, Todd.
The Canada's bocce team brought home some hardware from the 2025 America's Cup held in Cali, Colombia. Ontario's Lance brings home the silver medal in the men's BC1 category. In the women's BC4 category, Allison Levine brings home the bronze medal, which I'll tell you more about that in just a second. And then Yulian Carbanu and Allison Levine bring home the silver medal in pairs play. What that means for them is they qualify for Brazil and the World Championships in 2026. Now let's go back to Allison for just a second. Allison had to forfeit her semifinal because she was under the weather. So she was able to come back for the bronze medal game and win. So even though that wasn't the result she would have wanted, obviously, coming back under the weather and still coming home with some hardware is a really admirable thing.
Is amazing. Congratulations, Allison. That is really tough to do. Recently, in Game 2 of the National League Championship Series, Los Angeles Dodgers pitcher Yoshinobu Yamamoto became the latest pitcher to throw a complete game in the postseason. This is the first time since 2017 that the feat has been done, and it was last accomplished by Justin Verlander of the World Series champion Houston Astros. Congratulations to Mr. Yamamoto. Sorry, Brock, I fooled you there.
And guess what? The Blue Jays will have to battle him at some point in the World Series, and I'm totally fine with that. But we'll talk about the Blue Jays in a little while, I do promise. That's your headlines for this week. If you want to get a hold of us on social, here's how you can do that.
And welcome back to the Neutral Zone broadcast booth.
Play ball!
We're set to get this bowl game underway. The first pitch is brought to you by Brock Richardson's X account at Neutral Zone BR. Pitch and a strike. Hey, gang, why not strike up a chat with Claire Buchanan from the Neutral Zone? Find her on X at Neutral Zone CB. There's a swing of the chopper out to second base, right at Claire as she picks up the ball, throws it over to the first base for a routine play.
Out!
And fans, there's nothing routine about connecting with Cam and Josh from the Neutral Zone at Neutral Zone Cam J and at J Watson 200. Now that's a winning combination.
One of our headlines from last week was the fact that Andrew Parsons has been re-elected at the International Paralympic Committee level as president. This got me to think, let's have a discussion about it, but let's get some context first. So, his first presidency term started in September of 2017. His first Paralympic Games was therefore Korea, which was a Winter Games. Then we went on to that weird 2021 Tokyo Games, which was summer, which had no crowds. Then we had 2022 Beijing, and then we had the most recent Paris 2024. So that's sort of the resume in this situation. And now with his new term of being 4 years, he will carry us through at least one more winter and one more summer, pending more terms. Josh, in your opinion, what is the Paralympic movement been since he's taken over up till now?
Well, I'll be honest, it's a little hard for me to answer that just because I don't know very much about where the movement was compared to where it is now. I would say that it feels more high profile now than it did. The athletes, particularly in the United States and Canada, seem to be a bit better known, hopefully because of places like ours. Podcasts and advertisements and things of that nature. But how the movement has changed is really hard for me to answer because I really don't know.
So for me, the way I look at the movement changing is progression of Paralympic coverage. When I started in my Paralympic journey in 2008, we had zero coverage. Every year after that, we've seen progressively better. We do have big sponsors, like, you see the RBCs, the Petro-Canadas, all those Lululemons. Those are all big sponsors. And honestly, as I'm doing this in the moment, I probably should have gone first to give Josh a little bit of help on this. So I apologize live in the moment as I'm doing this. But
that's fine.
I there is that movement in that way. The one thing, Josh, that I know you have some thoughts on is normally when we look at presidents of any company or any organization, we can Google and say, what's the successes of this president? And either a really good resume comes up or a really bad resume comes up, and thus you find out that they are fired or not reinstated, and it's either one or the other. In this case, Mr. Parsons has been reinstated, so obviously we've been doing some good things, which led me to do some research, and what I could find was Andrew Parsons got reinstated for a third term. And then I asked myself, okay, what did he do? Put in, what did Andrew Parsons do? Not a lot of anything came up. So therein lies the question of two gentlemen having a conversation. How did everybody judge a new term if I can't find what he did so readily available?
I think in that regard, what you're going to find out if you do enough digging through meeting minutes and things of that nature, which probably are public records somewhere in the world, is that he probably has signed agreements that will benefit the Paralympic movement over time. He's probably secured different sponsorship deals, things of that nature. I guess it's just something. On the web. Sorry, folks, my phone decided to start talking to me for no apparent reason.
She wanted to join the podcast, so
apparently so. If she was a human, I would absolutely let her, but she's not. Yes. So I think what we'll find is that there's a lot of either donations coming in or sponsorship bid costs that have risen and brought the movement more money, or new sponsors, like I said, new sponsorship deals, more sponsors, a TV deal with a big network or streaming platform. There will be something. It just appears as though it's not common knowledge. And the one thing I would just add, Brock, just for clarification for our audience, two things actually. He's been reelected. There was an election that took place. And I did read on the IPC website that apparently he is limited to 3 terms. So after this term, he will no longer be eligible.
Good to know.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's funny that it's 3 terms in my mind. Like when you think of presidency, and it's normally 2 terms for a presidency. But again,
well, a U.S. president.
Yeah, they do things differently, and that's fine. For me, you can't look at this and say, did he bring revenue into the city? Sure, you bring some revenue. There's no doubt, because every Paralympics that I've seen, you hear, oh, seats are sold out, lots of people are coming. But you don't hear a lot of positive about, like, oh, we made X amount of dollars and the city is thriving and wonderful and so on and so forth. What you hear is the reverse. You hear cities don't actually want these games because they're not profitable. So we, as Cameron would say, it's normally about the almighty dollar, but in this case it's like, is it? Because you can't hold on to, oh, he brought in X amount of money to this situation. Now, the one that I can talk about here in North America is the fact that he and the Canadian Paralympic Committee have decided to continue to use CBC. And I would bet that the IPC president has a lot to do, or the people around have a lot to do with the deals of the National Sports Organization and the governing bodies. Like, that's his job. So when you think of, we're going to be getting more and more coverage, that to me goes on the resume of, like, he's doing a good job. And the other thing I would say, Josh, is every Paralympics you hear, this one was better than the last one. This city killed it. This city did this. This city did that. To me, that's also got to fall, at least in part, on the president. He's the guy who leads the charge and deserves. I have no issue with Andrew Parsons. In fact, I'm trying to get him on the program to have a discussion. So I'm in no way sitting here wondering, well, why does he have a 3rd term? What I'm wondering is what constitutes a 3rd term. And I don't know by the end of this conversation if you or I or anybody will be able to really know, because a lot of it's just not public knowledge, which is why this conversation we're having right now.
Right. I do think at the end of the day, there will be some kind of monetary year-over-year increase in budgets or in sponsorship dollars or something. I'm sure there are metrics somewhere. They're just not that easy to find.
Which is bizarre, because again, we go back to the whole thing about, like, if I Google the president, I of a company, I would know what they did or didn't do, and it's easy for me to pull up a list of what the notable moments are, but it's just not there. It was easier, Josh, for me to find out when he started, what Paralympics he's led, versus what are the notes of which that he has done positively, which again leads to the point of, that's why I want him on this show, because I want him to tell me what is it you do, because if we don't know, this is why podcasts like this exist. It's like, give the people what they all think, because I'm sure everything that came out was he was reinstated for a third term, and I'm sure the public is out there going, great, but why? You know what I mean? It's one of those things.
And I do wonder if part of that is that it's an international governing body as opposed to a corporation or public company, for example. And I also wonder if it's because it's Paralympic. I mean, if we were talking about an IOC president being elected to a third term, would we find more information? I don't know that answer. I should have looked, but I've been busy, so didn't have a chance to delve into that rabbit hole.
Yeah, and that's fair. But again, because for the audience member that's maybe joining us, new, it's not like the Olympics can hang on revenue either, because it's not true. Limited. It's not limited to the Paralympics that don't bring revenue. It's both. Like, you hear cities go, we don't want this, which makes me sad because I've participated in two, and so the idea of we don't want this is upsetting to me. It's like, this is the biggest stage in the world, whether Olympic or Paralympic and or both. Why wouldn't you want this? Well, it's all about the dollar. It's all about the dollars and cents. If you're not bringing it in, why would you want to do it? Unless it's for a labor of love. And I'm not sure that a city is going to say, we'll do this for the labor of love, because then you get into, well, taxpayers may have to pitch in, and people don't like pitching in their money and paying higher taxes, even if it is for a world event. Like, does it bother you when you hear, if we're hosting this games, your taxes are going to go up because we've got to pay for it?
It doesn't, but bear in mind, I'm also the type of person that can see the long game. So I look at it and I go, okay, my taxes are going up, but my kids and my children's children are presumably going to have facilities that they can use going forward, which will help them towards their potential Olympic and Paralympic dreams. I look back at a place you and I are both familiar with, Wonderland Gardens in London. That was a junior hockey rink. It got converted to a velodrome for a smaller event, grant you, but it got converted to a velodrome when the current stadium that the London Knights are in was constructed. And so that facility is now available for cyclists who have Olympic and Paralympic dreams. That's a legacy of that event, which I believe was the Canada Summer Games, if I remember correctly. And so as long as you have facilities and you have something tangible that people can look back to and say, okay, yes, it came out of my pocket, but I have this now as a result, I think more people would be okay with it. I just think that a lot of people struggle with, you're taking money out of my pocket, and by the time I'll get to use this, I won't see the benefit. It'll be my children or my children's children.
And also the argument of, I don't like sports. Like, people that don't like sports are not going to be willing to be like, here's money that I now have to dig out of my pocket because you're doing this event. I think most people, but there are going to be some, most people can get behind the Olympics and hopefully to a better extent the Paralympic Games. But there is that demographic that's going to say, I don't like sports. I'm not doing this. I'm going to give you two examples. Go ahead before I give you two examples.
Sure. To that, I would just say that's a poor sales job. To those people, what you have to present is not that, oh, we're building this for a sports purpose. We have to we have to pitch it as we're doing this to promote national pride, or find whatever thing those people do draw to. If you tell somebody, you're a proud Canadian, we're going to do this so that Canada can be on the world stage, which is going to bring in more business, more eyeballs on Canada, so people around the world learn about Canada, then I think more people will start to go, okay, I get it. I might still not be happy, but I get it.
Especially now, too, because Canada is so united on we're Canadian. So today, it's an easier sell than
1988
before.
when Calgary held it.
Because
exactly.
We're all like shoulder to shoulder, elbows up. Some people are going to argue the elbows have gone down a little bit from some people who have said that line, but I will stay away from politics, I promise.
Yeah, we're a sports show, Brock.
But when you can unite people around something that everybody goes, I either like this or I don't, and that's going to unite us, I think that's where you're getting to a point of like, if you get people on the right path and everybody's pushing the same narrative and the same goal, yeah, it's just, you have to get that unitable goal that everybody buys into, because we're all human beings and we all have difference of opinion, and it just becomes much of a challenge. Something that I want to say, and this gives you an idea of where things can be on both ends of the spectrum. So I'll start with 2008 Beijing. As at the Paralympic Games, it was probably the high end. Well, I was told that at that time, that Paralympic Village was high end. It was state of the art. It was, you had everything you needed. Wheelchair accessibility was great. All these things were so good, and buildings and bathrooms and etc. So I left thinking, wow, Beijing has such a good start for people with disabilities, and they went from not being shown, not being highlighted because they were in institutions, to now we're hosting this, so now we're going to participate in all the sports. And I left there thinking, this is great. This is the building blocks to the future, and my goodness, they're going to use the resources that they have. That's what the 18-year-old Brock Richardson felt leaving the Paralympics. I got
you naive young man.
Yes, I got the pleasure to go back to the same city about 5 years later, and we were driving through the village. First of all, I thought we were going to stay near the same village because they said they were still going to use it for the same purposes. It wasn't like it was going to go to condos. It wasn't like they were going to use it for sporting purpose because they thought. So I thought, okay, well, maybe we'll go into the same village. No, we didn't go into the same village. What we did was we drove through the village and we looked around going, where is everything? Where did it go? The village was run down. It was not well kept. It was not done well. And it was at that moment where I said to myself, as Josh just said out loud, oh, you naive 18-year-old, you really thought that this was going to hold up. Fast forward to Toronto 2015, we had the Para-Pan Am Games, which built some venues. We also used existing venues for that. The village was built. The Ability Center was created. To me, that's the biggest one that was created from that, is the Ability Center. There is that other one in Scarborough that's also created, which is called the Pan Am Center as well. So those are the two big ones that come to mind. I understood quickly that the village was going to be used as condos later on, and people were gonna live in those condos. The Abilities Center, the Pan Am Center, those were going to be used as venues. And now the Abilities Center gets used, the Pan Am Center gets used. So there is good that can come out of these things. But when you go back in 2008 and you think, wow, this was all state of the art, and 5 years later, it's nothing but nothing. And it can kind of be disappointing, Josh.
Absolutely. You have this expectation of exactly that. You have these lofty ideals that, oh, these are going to be state of the art facilities, and now Olympians and Paralympians from the country are going to be able to use these facilities. And sure, that's true, but I'll even give you another example, Brock. The venue where they held track and field is on the campus of York University. As soon as the event was over, that facility was turned over to the York University Lions. And what was one of the first things they did? They took out the infield of the track and they put in AstroTurf for the football team and the soccer team and whatever other field sports teams are there. So track and field went from being in that stadium to now back at Toronto Track and Field Centre across the street, which is an older facility run by the City of Toronto.
Yeah. I mean,
you lose out on the benefits of that state-of-the-art stadium because York University wanted a football stadium with AstroTurf. And York FC, or whatever the Canadian Soccer League team is, plays out of there as well. The York 9 or whatever they're called. Sorry, I should know, but I don't.
Yeah, I mean,
it still it still gets used occasionally, if I can use my English, but not for the purpose it was originally built.
I also look at the was it 88 when 88 was Calgary? When was
correct?
When was
2010
Montreal?
Was Vancouver. Montreal was 76.
So Olympic Stadium still exists and still gets used as training centers. They have the INS there, which is the National Center, but I don't remember what the I is. I feel like it's in Institute. It's INS, but I don't know what it is. So they have all kinds of different things, but then you have somebody who lit a fire in said place, and then there's damage and there's this. So it can be for good and it can be not so good. That place, the last time I had been there about 4 or 5 years ago, is really starting to look its age, which is obvious. You're not going to necessarily put the money into that to make it like state of the art. So there does come a point where it's like, okay, this is become its age. I think they're still using some things from Vancouver 2010 that still get benefit, but I think the Montreal Olympics and Paralympics is becoming to show its age and, for lack of a better term, wrinkles.
Well, and just the architecture of that time makes it kind of stand out, and you go, oh yeah, this was built in the 70s. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I was there for a national track and field championship, and it's like, wow, this is what we thought looked cool. Okay, sure. And I know a lot of the village buildings there, to go back to your original point, are being used as apartments or condos now.
And there's a part of it that's being used as a hotel as well. So they turn.
Yes, and I think I stayed there, and it's looking its age as well.
Yeah, it's that's where we would stay for camps and stuff with the national team, and it was looking its age 7 years ago, and I'm sure it's not getting any better. It looks very fancy in the lobby, but you go back behind the lobby and ooh dear.
Well, at Olympic Stadium, I can tell you, because I know friends who did it, the funicular is still in operation. the little elevator that goes to the top of the arm or whatever that is. Apparently, there's a little museum at the top of it.
There is. I actually I did that elevator ride when I was late for a call room with my respite worker, Kathy Ludwig, when I was starting out, and she felt really horrible, and she said, "Let's go up the elevator." And I said, "Okay," and we went up the elevator, and I went, this is pretty special. Like, yeah,
this is it.
And I don't know, I would imagine it's not gotten any better. We've sort of talked about the successes of Mr. Parsons that we could think of. What would you say would be the point of improvement if you could say to him, "This is what I'd like to see over your last term, sir"?
Well, again, not really knowing his mandate, that is a tough question. I would like to see even more coverage. I think everyone on our panel has said that at one time or another. We would like to have the same treatment as the Olympics. I think that having the same amount of sponsorship dollars going towards the Paralympic movement as the Olympic movement would be something to strive for. And I think having Paralympians around the world recognized in the same way as Olympians is a goal to shoot for. And I think those things are those are attainable, because I think those are just conversations with national Paralympic committees and saying, like, guys, these are your athletes too. Don't leave them in the dark. Don't leave them in the cold. And as you point out, a country should not develop its Paralympic program when it's going to host and then toss it by the wayside. I remember just before Sochi, Russia was getting ready to host the Winter Olympics and Paralympics. They did not have a para-hockey program, so they developed one. They brought over a coach from London, Ontario, as I recall, Todd Sargent, and he taught them the game. And a few years later, they came back and they played at the London Para-Hockey Tournament that goes on in January every year in that beautiful city. And they crushed everybody. But now that things have fallen by the wayside, I don't know when they are brought back, which is another discussion I'm sure we're going to have at some point. I don't know what their program will look like, because I don't know that their athletes have had a chance to compete, and so they've probably moved on.
Well, yeah, they've been reinstated, and that's been a recent development. And I didn't think about the situation you just brought up about the fact that, like, what do they look like? Like, they've missed a bunch of games due to decisions made by the country. And this is not, I'm not going down a rabbit hole here because I want to talk about the Blue Jays, but this is decisions made by your country, which you have paid the price for. If I was to bet, they are training as hard as they can. If I was to know Russia in how they run things, they are training their athletes as hard as you can. But you and I well know, Josh, you can train your athletes as hard as you want, but live game action is a whole other animal. So we'll see what it looks like.
We will. And let's not forget that I'm sure they're not just training their athletes. They're probably, if you'll excuse my tongue-in-cheekness, they're probably training their scientists too.
Fair.
Oops, did I say that out loud on a radio show?
Yeah,
Oops.
Yeah. And lots of time when nobody's been watching because they've just said, nope, you can't go to this games. Nope, you can't go to that one. And they're doing their thing. So, yeah, I would agree. It'll be very interesting to see what they look like in the next few years or year because they can come back in the winter Olympics under the non-flag athlete, which is a whole other conversation for a whole other day. But
we only have a half hour left, Brock.
Yeah. Let's not do that, but we will another day.
Yes.
Something I would like to do now, and I'd like to do this first part relatively speedy, but when we last left you before Thanksgiving, the Toronto Blue Jays, I think, were about to play the Seattle Mariners or just finishing with the New York Yankees. And really, disaster kind of struck in the first two games of the American League Championship Series. We went down 2-0, and then the stats came out of, it's only been done 3 times since that, the team that goes down 2-0 comes back and wins the series. Then Toronto goes to Seattle and says, no, we're going to tie this up. Then Toronto comes back home, and John Schneider and his coaching staff do the weirdest thing I could have painted. They brought in their reliever, Brendan Little, to get them out of a jam, who has a almost 6.5 ERA, earned run average, and they did not bring in their high leverage. They then lost that game and had to play game 6 and 7. Josh, I'm going to stop there on purpose. What did you make of this moment in time when you saw Brendan Little warming up in the bullpen?
Honestly, I didn't think that much about it because he's had rocky appearances, but then been lights out the next time. So with a reliever, it's very hard to guarantee what you're going to get, because when you only throw one inning basically every day or every few days, depending on how the team is doing, it's harder to, in my opinion, stay sharp. Now, there are things that they can do. They can throw side sessions. They can do, they can throw in cages, I'm sure. I'm sure there are ways that they keep themselves sharp. Admittedly, Brendan Little has been used a lot during the regular season. And I think what we saw was that he hit a wall and he couldn't perform the way he needed to. I saw his interview after that game, and full marks to him. He owned it. He said, hey, I didn't play well. This is my fault. And that takes guts, especially in front of cameras. But at some point, and I don't want to sound like our dear friend Mr. Jenkins and blame Schneider for everything, but I will say to you that when you decide early in the season that you're going to handpick a few guys and you are going to lean on them, that's dangerous. You run the risk of them burning out or injuring themselves by the time you get to the postseason. Quite honestly, I'm shocked that the bullpen is in the state it was in when we got to Seattle's series. But in that moment, seeing Little come in, I was nervous. I thought, ooh, how's this going to go? And it didn't go well. But I mean, he's been one of your guys for the whole season. He's been in your quote unquote circle of trust if you listen to Dan Schulman and Buck Martinez on the broadcast. I don't know that there should be a circle of trust. I think the bullpen needs to be the bullpen and everybody has a role. And I'm also of the opinion that you have one job as a reliever, and that is to come in and throw strikes. If you don't do it, you should lose your job. That's not on the manager. The manager is putting you in there expecting you to do your job.
I'm going to give quick remarks on this because I want to get to the happier points of where this is going. But I'll tell you this. I support my teams like I live and die through every pitch. Like I had tears last night, okay? Like this is, for the record, we were recording this on Tuesday after Game 7. I had tears in my eyes when things happened the way they did. But during the Brendan Little scenario, after the home run was given up, I texted this neutral zone group that we have, and I said, quote, if they lose this series, you guys are going to have to hold me back because I was seeing red. And all I can say is thank goodness that we didn't have to record the day after Game 5 because I was not happy. I don't understand the decision. I understand the matchups, like the whole, if it's a lefty or, righty matchup, I get all that. What I didn't understand was you were turning around a switch hitter. Like, they're a switch hitter for a reason. Maybe they're not as good from one end to the other, but they are a switch hitter. And I just didn't get it.
Right.
And so no. I was furious, and I was ready to come on and almost apologize to Cameron because I had defended John all season long. I thought Cameron was overblowing all season about like he can't manage the bullpen, but after Game 5 I couldn't help but think maybe Cameron was right. Then Game 6 happened in Game 7, which was amazing. Didn't think it was going to happen this way. Springer on half a knee hit a home run, 3-run home run, when honestly, Josh, the game was kind of a dud and it was kind of dying, and it was like, oh goodness, I think Cal Raleigh and Julio Rodriguez, who hit home runs, are gonna have the moment and it's gonna be a thing. I'm pleasantly surprised that they're in the World Series because I didn't think it was gonna happen, and here we are. So what's your reaction? First time since 93 that they're in the World Series. What say you?
I am ecstatic. I am so excited. I remember 93. I vaguely remember 92. And honestly, I get the two of them confused because I know I was on my parents' living room floor watching the Blue Jays game when Joe Carter hit his famous home run, and we heard that iconic phrase, touch 'em all, Joe, you'll never hit a bigger home run in your life. And I will always remember that. And I will also remember the cast of characters we had. I'll remember Ricky Henderson. I'll remember Paul Molitor. I'll remember Tony Fernandez and Kelly Gruber and Pat Borders and up and down the lineup. I'll remember those guys because those guys were heroes. I will also say it's about time because I get very tired, and I promise I'm not getting on my soapbox here. We don't have time. But I get really tired of the narrative of ball players don't want to come to Toronto. Because, I'm sorry, we're one of the largest cities and markets in North America. And you have the chance to play for an entire country here. You don't have that in the States. So, I'm sorry, but it's a damn privilege to play on this team and play for a whole country. And I think the guys on that team, as they're sitting there today and seeing all the love from across our country, are realizing that.
The numbers came out for Game 7, and it's tremendous, the amount of people that tuned in. Like, from beginning to end, you had 6 million people watching the game. So, like, from inning 1 to inning 9, you had 6 million people. Then there was this bump of, like, it was like 4 million more from, like, 11 p.m. onward because things started to happen. People started to see on social media. This kind of numbers the States do not get. I will tell you why, and it's Josh's point. When your team is out in your individual market, you are jam done with baseball. It's over. So in the States, when you have 2 markets, you have the one fan base and you have the other. And you will have, I'm not going to sit here and say that you don't have other fanatic baseball fans in America that, will watch. But invariably, the numbers drop because most of the teams are gone. Canada is an entire country. And I can hear the interview I did with Dave Brown and saying that I hate the narrative of Canada's team and there's Canadians who have other teams, and I hear you, Dave, I do. But the point is that the vast majority of the country, if you like baseball, will jump on the bandwagon for the Blue Jays. This is a team that you have to worry about from the top of the order to the bottom. And I'll tell you something, there is a huge X factor coming possibly on Friday morning at 10 a.m. Bo Bichette said after the game, I'm ready to play. And if you can get that guy in the lineup, whatever form you get him in, I don't care. He's hitting cleanup, and that's it. If you get 1 hit from him, 2 hits, I don't care. But you're making Dave Roberts look at this lineup and go, there's just nowhere to stop with this team. There's nowhere that I can say I can get a breather. Andres Jimenez can hit home runs. He's your 9 guy. Like, this team is deep, and you want to talk about what you're tired of? I'm tired of this narrative already that the Blue Jays don't have a chance against the Dodgers. Okay, sure. If you say so.
The season series was 2-1 for LA, but this is a 7-game series, and Toronto has the home field advantage.
Yeah. I don't understand how Toronto can be such underdog. Well, I do, because a lot of the people that are
pundits are American.
Yes, and so where are they going to land? They're going to land with the Dodgers. I get it. But man, do I ever want to prove them so wrong. Like, Toronto, including of the playoffs, have come back like 53 or 54 times. But even when they're down, they're not out of this. They did something that only 3 teams before them have done in getting out of a hole of 2-0. And then they had to get out of a hole of 3-2 because they lost a game they probably shouldn't have lost. They are the comeback kids. They know what's going on. And the Dodgers, yes, they have a good pitching staff. Yes, I agree. But the thing the Blue Jays do really well is they wear down good pitching. And you cannot pitch that well for that long if the Toronto Blue Jays wear out the team, because some point it's going to come back. They don't strike out. They take their walks. It's next man up. I am so excited for this series. It's not funny. I'll tell you, before I ask Josh for a prediction, I'll tell you something. Last night, I was happy for the organization. I was happy that, we put in a lot of money to this team, but I was happy for 3 people that nobody talks about. Those 3 people were Hazel May, Buck Martinez, and Dan Shulman. And you know what I did last night? I thought to myself, I'm going to send a text to Dan Shulman, because I have the privilege and I'm fortunate to do this. And I'm going to send him a message that says, congratulations, because he doesn't get to call his home team this far, because normally we're eliminated, it's gone, then you got to go to the American network, and it's all. I sent him a message and said, congratulations, because you deserve it. And he was so appreciative of that. He said to me, thank you very much, and I'm having a ball. And you can tell it, Josh, that this broadcast team is having a hell of a ball, and they're enjoying every second of it, and they get to do it at least 4 more times.
At least. I'm very glad to hear he responded, because I know in our group you told us that you had done that, but you didn't tell us if he replied. So that is very cool. And I mean, Dan is the voice of Blue Jays baseball. I love Hazel and Buck and Joe Siddle and Ben Shulman and all the other people that have filled in for Buck while he's been sick. But Dan and Buck are Blue Jays baseball to me. They just are.
Yep, they are. So I'm going to tell you that I do not think this will be over in 4 games either way. I'm going to pick... I'm going to pick the Blue Jays. I think the Blue Jays win in 6. I think they win at home. I think it happens. And I think they get it done. What say Josh Watson?
Oh, I might make a lot of enemies. I love my Blue Jays. I do. I love them to death. But I'm scared. I am really scared, because I know it's all hands on deck, and I know we have the horses, but LA has been there so many times, and they have so many good players and so many good pitchers that I'm just not sure. I don't know that it's going to go 7. It might go 5. It might go 6. But I'm just nervous. And it has more to do with our bullpen than it does anything else. And, well, that's not even true. Because I've watched those 2 games in Seattle. And maybe in Toronto to start the Seattle series. Those bats were so cold, they had ice on them. We just couldn't get hits. And so if the Dodger pitchers come out throwing like they can, it could be hard. So I want my Blue Jays to win. I do. But I think I'm going to go LA in 6.
Ooh.
I'm just that scared.
I
hope I'm wrong.
I'm also scared. For me to pick the Blue Jays, it's like, are you picking?
You're sticking your neck out.
Are you picking because you're a homer? No, I just think the train is rolling, and I think home field makes a difference. And I'll tell you something. If Toronto doesn't have home field, there isn't a snowball's chance in what that this is happening. But if Toronto wins like one game at Chavez Ravine, it's game on, in my opinion, and we'll see. It's going to be very fascinating to see what happens. It starts on Friday. It goes Friday, Saturday in Toronto, then an off day on Sunday, then Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, then an off day on Thursday, and then we finish up in Toronto Friday and Saturday. So that is your schedule. You better get your naps. You better get your naps in if you need those, because it starts at 8 p.m. every night, and that's just how it rolls. But enjoy it. Josh, you were going to say?
I was just going to add that there is a stat that I saw on Sportsnet, which I think may back you up. And I was trying to see if I can find it. I don't think I'm going to be able to find it in the time we have left. But it basically said that when you have a team that swept the league championship series and a team that went 7 games in the league championship series, the team that went 7 games wins the World Series. So if that is correct, I think your prediction is on.
And
but if there's a team that is going to change it, it's going to be the Dodgers. But I hope I'm wrong.
You know what I don't want to see though, and this is where I'll close. I will give Josh a chance to either agree or disagree. I don't want to, whatever happens with the Blue Jays, I don't want to see the long faces of we were almost there. You guys way overachieved. Okay, you were at the bottom of the American League East at the end of last year, and now you're American League champion. Whatever happens now is gravy. The only thing that I would be a little sour on is like if we get swept, but I don't think that's happening, so it's fine. But I don't want to see the long faces, Josh, because it's been a great season.
It absolutely has, and I 100% agree with you. I'm happy that they've gotten this far. I did find the stat I'm looking for on MLB.com. It says, in part, you may have already noticed a theme here, but let's spell it out. Each of the 4 previous times that one LCS was a sweep and the other went 7 games, the team winning the 7-game LCS won the World Series too. So I hope you're right.
And just in case you're living under a rock, the Dodgers swept it in 4 and the Blue Jays obviously won in 7. So you know where that stat lies. But then the game is not played on paper. It's played in diamonds, so we'll just see. But we will have another week at least to analyze it. By the time we get to you next week, there'll be 2 games into the World Series, and I know we will talk about it. That is the end of our show for this fine week. I'd like to thank Josh Watson. I'd also like to thank our technical producer, Mark Affollo, and I want to congratulate and wish Mark good luck as he's doing some work with the World Series. Enjoy it. Toronto is going to be some kind of fun. Be safe, be well. We'll see you next week.